Now though, what is next for Tyson Fury? The WC World Heavyweight Champion claimed a controversial split decision victory over former UFC fighter Francis Ngannou in Saudi Arabia on Saturday evening. Ngannou was making his pro boxing debut, put Fury in the canvas in round 3 after connecting with a left hook, and many felt that Fury was very, very lucky to be announced as the winner. But yesterday, Fury's promoter Frank Warren joined us in breakfast and hit back at suggestions that Ngannou won the fight.
Tyson had a bit of an off night, and I hear, and I know obviously a lot of people go with the underdog, get that, understand that. Us Brits really understand that, because that's the type of nation we are. Having said that, facts are, you look at the punches that land, that connect, not ones that are thrown and miss, proper punches that land, and according to Computer Box, Tyson landed more, and in my eyes, landed more, and I thought he won it by a couple of rounds.
Okay, after the fight, Oleksandr Usyk's promoter insisted that Fury cannot escape, was the quote that he used, an undisputed world title fight on December the 23rd, a couple of days before Christmas. But it seems the undisputed heavyweight fight is unlikely to happen until next year, after Usyk's manager Alex Krashuk told Jim White and Simon Jordan that he's coming to terms that his man might just have to wait.
Well, it's not something that we agreed for, but if he's really injured, what can we do? This is number one. And number two, we would not like to beat Saturday night version of Fury. It brings no benefit and no credits if you beat up a man like that. We want Fury to be in his best shape ever. That's what we want to see, because we are thinking not just about the belt. We try to create the history, and the history has to be spectacular.
Okay, spectacular, he says. Joining us from Warren is the chairman of Matchroom Sport, Eddie Hearn. Eddie, good morning. How are you this morning?
I'm good, mate. I'm good. We're back from Mexico and we got a big show in Monaco this Saturday. So
smashing around. So it's all happening, Pat. The first thing I want to ask you, mate, the fight at the weekend, you obviously saw it. Was it the right decision? And, was it a bad night for boxing?
I mean, it was an embarrassing night for boxing, but I think overall, the focus was on boxing. The production, the spectacle that Saudi Arabia put on was incredible. But I just can't believe it. I mean, I feel bad because in the build-up to the fight, it's a complete mismatch. You're talking about a guy that's never had a professional boxing match before, a complete novice, and really, in my eyes, beat the number one heavyweight in the world and should have had the glory of the greatest upset in the history of the sport. I mean, by a mile. Forget Buster Douglas against Mike Tyson and Andy Ruiz against AJ. This was on another level. This is a guy that's never had a professional fight. So it was close. They didn't really do a lot. I mean, it was a poor contest, but he dropped Tyson Fury, hurt him again in the 8th and threw him around in the clinch. And, for me, Francis Ngannou deserved to edge the fight, but I'm still baffled by the performance, what happened in the fight. Obviously, Fury getting dropped as well. And, it was a shocker.
Eddie, we spoke to Frank yesterday, and Frank sort of intimated to us that it's going to be the new year now for Usyk, for Tyson. Surprised at that or not?
Yeah, I mean, that fight, it's a huge blow for that fight because obviously everyone says, well, Francis Ngannou should get his rematch. And he's going to have a massive fight now. I mean, I think all of a sudden, I can't believe I'm even saying it, but all of a sudden, if Francis Ngannou against Anthony Joshua fight, it becomes a huge fight. Yeah. But for Tyson Fury, the value of the Usyk fight drops considerably because it was a really, really poor performance. And, I think it's quite funny because Fury really knew that Usyk wasn't really ready for December 23rd. So all last week he said, you better not run December 23rd. That's the date. I don't want to hear any excuses. And then obviously when Usyk was ringside watching Fury, he got in the ring and said, I'm ready, December 23rd, no excuses. And now he can't do it. I don't reckon that fight will happen till February, even March. Fury got bashed up against Ngannou. You saw his eye was in a bit of a bad state the next day. And, he's had a long camp as well. And the thing is with Tyson Fury, he doesn't take criticism very well. As you know, you guys are banned from talking to Tyson Fury. And he's going to get a lot of stick over the coming weeks and months. And I think he'll probably disappear now for a couple of months and have a rest and then get back in camp. And I guess we'll see him again in February or March. Still a big fight, but obviously nowhere near the size of the fight that it was because most feel he just got beat by a complete novice.
Yeah, what did AJ make of that performance?
I haven't really spoke to him about the fight, honestly. I mentioned about the Ngannou fight. I mean, AJ wants to fight in December if he can. Obviously, we're talking about the Deontay Wilder fight as well. And look, I met Ngannou about 6 months ago. What a lovely man. And he asked me to fight Anthony Joshua. And I took it to AJ and he just sort of laughed and said, look, I want to try and win the World Heavyweight Championship. I don't want a gimmick fight. But the gimmick fighter just beat the lineal World Heavyweight Champion. So all of a sudden, you know, if Ngannou and those guys want to fight Anthony Joshua, it's a massive fight. I know AJ would do it, but he is focused on the World Heavyweight Championship. He's not the type to start laughing, and you know he's been through it. You know, when he got beat by Ruiz, he got an unbelievable amount of stick. But I mean, Ruiz is a top 5 heavyweight in the world. This guy, as we said, has never put on a pair of boxing gloves in the ring. So it's gonna, you know, he's not going to take it very well, Tyson. But you know, he took the money for a load of money. He took the fight for a load of money. Didn't think there was any risk and kind of come unstuck. But listen, you have to give credit to Ngannou as well. He did the basic things very well, and it was a remarkable performance given the circumstances.
It was incredible, Eddie. I mean, like Ngannou, has he forced himself in front of guys like Zhilei Zhang to compete at the top level against the, you know, the...
Yeah, I mean, look, to be honest, like I did a big piece last night of Errol Hawani on the MMA show. Like the UFC world and MMA world are like, they all of a sudden think Francis Ngannou can beat every heavyweight on the planet. He can lose to any heavyweight from English title level to world title level. It's styles make fights. He was completely gassed, in my opinion, after 5 or 6 rounds. But Fury didn't do anything. You know, if you would have forced the pace, I think he would have just folded. But listen, fair play to him. He's a big lump, and he can obviously whack a little bit as well. But you know, if I'm Francis Ngannou, I'm looking at it and saying, give me the biggest fight possible, and that probably comes. It's 2 fights. It's Anthony Joshua or it's Deontay Wilder. They're the 2 massive fights for Deontay Wilder, for Ngannou, 2 huge men. But we'll see. I can't even believe we're talking about this on a Tuesday morning.
In some ways, Eddie, I was hoping that Tyson Fury was going to step up, and no disrespect to Francis Ngannou at all. I was hoping Tyson Fury was going to finish it in a couple of rounds and kind of put almost not put the lid on this sort of stuff, but so as you and Frank and AJ and Tyson Fury can get back to sorting the big boxing nights out, the big proper boxing nights out. But I fear now it's opened the doors for everyone to get involved again.
Yeah, I said to the guys last night, I said, don't think that any MMA fighter can all of a sudden compete with world-class fighters. But look, although Ngannou's never laced a pair of gloves up before, he did have, you know, he came into the sport, if you like, through boxing. So he knew the basic fundamentals, but the fact remains he's still a novice that's never boxed before. So he did a good job. And,
did you think he won the fight, Ed? Did you think he won it?
Yeah, I do.
Genuinely, you genuinely felt he won it?
I thought it was a very close fight. But when you drop, don't forget, it was a fight, and I heard Frank's comments about, he landed more. You can land a load more in 1 round. And when you're looking at complete punch stats, it doesn't tell the whole story. But when you get dropped and hurt, and Tyson Fury was holding on for dear life at times, you look petrified. So all I know is when the final bell came, I felt, oh my God, he's got it. And so did 90% of the people watching. So, and I feel a bit for him, because for everyone saying, wow, you gained our respect, you did this. If he wins that fight, that goes down in the history of not just boxing, but sport, as he's never boxed before. Eddie, he's never had a professional fight. I
want to ask you a question, mate. I want to ask you a question. Sorry to interrupt you there. I want to ask you a question I've asked most of the boys yesterday. After watching that fight the weekend, and I watched the entire fight, does that have a psychological effect on Tyson Fury?
It has a psychological effect on his opponents. I mean, I've said it before. Listen, you know I'm AJ's biggest fan. I've always felt he could beat Tyson Fury. If AJ was in the ring on Saturday, he would have stopped Tyson Fury inside 6 rounds. And I believe he does it now. I don't believe his punch resistance is the same coming through those Wilder fights. I'm not sure his heart's in it as much as he wants. So, you know, for me, we want to get that Fury fight with AJ as quick as possible. But, you know, it kind of, if I'm Usyk, if I'm AJ, and you see Ngannou dropping with not even a massive shot, I'm thinking, wow, this guy can be hurt. He didn't look comfortable. He looked afraid at times of Francis Ngannou. When they were in the clinch, as you'd expect, the size and the strength of Ngannou was almost spraying him around like a rag doll. But, you know, you have to understand as well, Fury was definitely under-motivated. Yeah. He was probably under-prepared. But still, let's not take anything away from Ngannou. But if I'm Fury psychologically, it probably puts a dent in. But I think the opponents, like Usyk, becomes a huge favourite in that fight now. Huge favourite. But you will get a better Tyson Fury in that fight. But you know, when you take, it wasn't necessarily a risk, but when you do silly things like fight a UFC guy and it backfires, it does affect your legacy.
Eddie, we've got some we want you to hear, mate. I've got to go to a break, but I want you to hear this if you could. Chris Eubank Jr. has been speaking exclusively to talkSPORT over the last day or so. He's been speaking about the current relationship between the Eubank and Benn families. Have a listen, Eddie.
You know, they say there's bad blood between Junior, my son, and Conor. There isn't any bad blood. I mean, this is the dad that's put that onto that young man, as far as I'm concerned. There's no reason for it, and Junior isn't interested in anything that doesn't make money. So there's no bad blood. So you know what he looked at is the fact that they tried to boil down his cousin to 157. Okay, so now there's beef, and that beef is you tried to boil my cousin down to that weight. Whatever promoter did that. Okay, so now there is beef. He doesn't bark. And he's not aggressive, but he's sweet. Okay, and let me tell you, if I can do what I did to his dad, being as sweet as I've always been, because I've never barked either, he's not a barker, then, the sweetness here can do the same to the dad, can do the same to the son that I did to the dad.
What about it, Eddie? You're obviously close to the Benn camp. Would you say there is any tension there, and you give us any latest on that potential fight?
Yeah, I mean, I think what Chris was doing there was he's now, obviously he doesn't represent Junior anymore. He represents Harlem, and he's trying to canvass for a Harlem fight against Conor Benn, which is of no interest to us at all. The beef and the bad blood is very real between Conor Benn and Chris Eubank Jr. And I would expect it to be after what happened. We want to close that fight, in the next 7 days. I believe you're going to see Benn Eubank in January. It's going to be a massive stadium fight in the UK. Still got to get the contract signed, see the ink dry, but that's the fight we want to make. It's the only one we're interested in. The history's there, the legacy's there, the controversy's there. It's definitely not at 157 pounds. Conor's already said 160 pound, no problem. But that's the biggest fight in British boxing right now, and we're going to get it signed.
And Eddie, just briefly, sorry, Ali, briefly. AJ Wilder, where are we? Is that moving? Are the goalposts moving again here, or what? Or is this going to happen?
So we agreed that fight. Everyone agreed the terms, the purse, everything for that fight for January in Saudi Arabia. They didn't come through in that particular instance. So we're now looking at March or April for that fight. AJ wants to fight in December or January. We have also spoken very, very briefly to the Ngannou camp to say we'd be willing to look at that fight. I mean, I love that fight in Africa. The Rumble in the Jungle 2 out there would be incredible between two heavyweight giants, if you like. But AJ wants to win the world heavyweight title. That's the main focus. So whatever route will get him there the quickest, that's what he wants to do.